The desert wind carried dust across my yard that morning, coating everything in a fine red-brown film that seemed to cling to my very skin. It rattled the windows of my cabin, howled low through the cracks, and reminded me once again that out here on the edge of the frontier, nothing came easy. I had been up since dawn, the way I was every day, though truth be told, I hadn't slept much the night before. Worry kept me awake more than the coyotes. I was feeding the cattle, what few remained after the hard winter, and patching up the same stretch of fence that always seemed to give out. Sweat burned my eyes though the morning was cool, and my back ached from labor that felt endless. But none of that was the worst of it. No, the worst was the weight pressing heavy in my chest. The rent. The land I grazed my cattle on wasn't mine, though my father once dreamed it could be. He had leased it from the Whitfield estate before he passed, and after his death, that responsibility fell squarely on my shoulders. I had promised myself I'd keep his dream alive, keep the ranch running no matter the cost. But dreams and promises don't pay bills. That morning I counted what I had, just a few crumpled bills and coins, not near enough to cover the full rent due. My pride felt raw as I shoved the money into my pocket. Still, I saddled my horse. A man has to face his debts, even when he knows he's coming up short. The ride into town was quiet except for the creak of leather and the steady clop of hooves on the hard-packed trail. The sky stretched wide and blue above me, but it felt more like a burden than a blessing. Every fence post, every mile of prairie reminded me of all I stood to lose. By the time I reached the Whitfield place, my throat was dry, my palms damp beneath my gloves. Clara Whitfield was not a woman you wanted to disappoint. She was a widow, yes, but she carried herself with the kind of dignity most men never even dreamed of possessing. She kept her land in good order, her affairs even more so. Folks in town spoke her name with respect, though some whispered with envy. I had known her for years in passing, seen her in town when she came to buy supplies or attend church. She was beautiful in a quiet, untouchable way, her hair always tied neat, her dresses modest but fine, her eyes steady as the horizon. I never once imagined myself standing on her porch, hat in hand, trying to explain why I couldn't pay her what I owed. But there I was. When she opened the door, sunlight spilling in around her, my chest tightened. She looked at me not with surprise, but as if she'd been expecting me all along. "Mr. Hayes," she said softly, her voice like smooth creek water. "You're late." I nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes, ma'am. I brought what I could. It ain't the full amount, but I'll make it right. I swear it." I set the money on her table, crumpled bills that looked pitiful against the polished wood. My hands trembled just a little, but I tried to steady them. She glanced down at the money, then back at me. She didn't count it, didn't even touch it. Instead, she studied me for a long moment, her eyes searching, measuring. "You work yourself near to death on that ranch," she said finally. "Anyone can see it. But money doesn't seem to stretch far enough for men like you these days." Her words stung, though not cruelly. They were true, and truth has a way of cutting deeper than lies. I shifted on my feet. "That's true enough, ma'am. But I'll find a way. Just give me more time." Something softened in her gaze then, though I couldn't place it. Her lips curved faintly, not in mockery but in something almost tender. She leaned back slightly in her chair, her voice lowering. "Mr. Hayes, do you think money is the only way a debt can be settled?" The question caught me off guard. I blinked, my brows furrowed. I don't follow." Her eyes didn't waver, didn't blink. They held me steady, pinned me in place as if she were looking straight through me. "There are other kinds of payment," she murmured. "Ones that can't be measured in coin or bills." My heart stumbled in my chest. Heat rose in my cheeks, a flush I hadn't felt in years. I didn't understand at first, or maybe I did, but I couldn't bring myself to believe it. Not until she stepped closer, her hand brushing against mine where it rested on the table. That touch, it was warm, deliberate, and it sent a jolt through me stronger than any whiskey. "You've been carrying too much for too long," she whispered. "What I want isn't your money. What I want is you. Your company. Your honesty. The kind of payment only a man's heart can give." The room seemed to fall away. The ticking clock, the sunlight through the curtains, the dust motes drifting in the air, all of it blurred. The only thing clear was her hand on mine and the look in her eyes. I had thought myself invisible to her. Just another rancher, worn thin by work and dead, destined to fade into dust. But she saw me not as a failure, not as a man broken by hardship, but as someone worth holding onto. I let out a breath I hadn't known I was holding, my shoulders slumping under the release of it. Slowly, I covered her hand with mine, rough skin against soft, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the world ease. What grew between us after that day wasn't fast, but it was steady, like spring water seeping up through dry ground. I still worked my ranch from dawn to dusk, still chased cattle and mended fences, but my evenings no longer ended in silence. Instead, I found myself at Clara's table, sharing supper and stories, the lamplight casting her face in golden glow. We spoke of loss, of dreams, of what it meant to survive in a land that gave nothing freely. She confessed her loneliness, how the nights stretched long and empty in her big house. I admitted my fears, the shame of failing my father's dream. And in those confessions, we found something stronger than pity. We found understanding. Not everyone in town approved. Some whispered that Clara Whitfield had taken pity on a broke rancher, others muttered that I was after her land. But when she walked beside me down Main Street, her hand tucked firmly in mine, I realized none of it mattered. Because love born in the dust of hardship is stronger than gossip. Months passed, and though the ranch was still hard work, the weight of it didn't feel so crushing. Because I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. Clara's presence filled the empty spaces in my life, her laughter chasing the shadows from my nights, her touch reminding me that I wasn't as invisible as I had once thought. I went to her door that day with nothing but shame and desperation, prepared to lose everything. Instead, I gained something far richer. Not money. Not land. But love. And in the quiet of prairie nights, when the stars stretched endless above us and the wind carried the scent of sage across the hills, I thanked the Lord that payment came in more forms than coin. Because the kind she wanted was the kind I had been aching, all along, to give.